Okay, on today's show we're talking about Sadiq Khan, Nigel Farage, EVs escape and fines, self-checkouts and a whole lot else. Let's begin. Okay, first up we've got a story from the sea. Sadiq Khan. It says the deepfake audio of Sadiq Khan is not a criminal offence, that says the Met Police. And to let you know what that's all about, a little while ago some people put up a deepfake audio of Sadiq Khan basically slating Remembrance Day, which admittedly is not a very nice thing to do and kind of puts Sadiq Khan into a bad light, but I'm sorry, it's not an offence. I mean, we've often heard of other people like Cassette Boy, I think his name was, when Boris Johnson was still in power, putting all sorts of stuff together, making him say all sorts of things. And if this whole thing with Sadiq Khan is a criminal offence, then that surely would have been as well. So it just stands to reason, doesn't it, that it is not a criminal offence, no matter how much he actually may want it to be or pees him off. But anyway, the article says that a spokesman for the Mayor said that the Met Police was aware of this fake video that is being circulated around and was amplified on social media by apparently far-right groups, and it was actively being investigated. But in a statement to Sky News, a Met Police spokesperson said that we can confirm we were made aware of a video of the Mayor, and specialist officers have reviewed this video and assessed that it does not constitute a criminal offence. So I'm sorry, Sadiq, but no doubt you want to moan about it on Twitter like a lot of lefties seem to do nowadays. Oh, I'm offended, you'll probably say. Well, that's just tough. Next up, this is quite an interesting one. It says that drivers face £80 fine for parking more than their allotted time at a supermarket, but EV drivers just manage to escape it. Well, how can they do that? By apparently charging their car on supermarket charges, which, thinking about it, all cars should really have the same rules, shouldn't they? And there should be some sort of limit placed on EV chargers at supermarkets. Therefore, to make sure that actually more people can get their EVs charged more often, rather than just getting filled up by one or two drivers over a longer period of time. But it is weird, isn't it, how they do have different rules from normal drivers. And I personally don't think that's very fair at all, especially as not only that presumably means that EVs can park there for longer, but for other EV drivers there tends to only be a couple of charges at supermarkets, doesn't it? So can you imagine how peed off you'd be if you're actually low on charge and then go there and it's taken up by some person who's parked there for who knows how long? But anyway, the article says that if you don't own an EV, you can easily get lumped with a hefty fine. Motorists need to be aware that charging points up and down the country have regulations just like normal car spaces do. And while it might sound obvious that petrol and diesel owners will be charged if they leave their cars in EV spaces, this rule applies for all charging stations, not just to supermarket car parks. So actually looking at this, it seems like the only people who would fall for this and put their normal petrol and diesel car in a electric car bay is, I don't know, probably someone with a penis attached to their head, because it's kind of obvious that it's an EV charging space. Firstly, because it's probably more than likely painted on the ground, and secondly, because of that bloody great charger over there. Well, next up we've got Nigel Farage, and he's apparently going to be seeking millions of pounds in damages from NatWest and their former CEO, and personally I don't blame him. I thought it was absolutely disgraceful that she leaked what's essentially his personal and private details about how much money he may or may not have had in his account, which admittedly she didn't give the exact figure, but that's essentially that he didn't have enough. Which I don't know about you, but if someone leaked my personal details or amount that I had in the bank, I would be extremely peed off. And you would think that someone who works for a bank would surely know that, wouldn't you? I mean, surely that's one of the cornerstones in banking. You protect a person's money and their privacy, don't you? It just makes me wonder how much he'll actually get from this. And apparently he'll be starting suing them, or seeking compensation from them rather, next week. Although thinking about it, he has just signed up for I'm a Celebrity Get Me Out of Here, isn't he? Obviously more than likely he's got his lawyers working on this as we speak. But anyway, the article says that initial legal letters are expected to be issued by Nigel Farage's lawyers during the course of next week and indicated this weekend. One source said he was expected to seek out a total sum worth millions of pounds for damage to his reputation and to cover his legal costs. And in a statement issued to Sky News on Sunday morning, Mr Farage said, "For all their lies and deceptions towards me and their illegitimate debanking of tens of thousands of innocent people, NatWest and its former CEO Dame Alison Rhodes need to be held to account." And I personally agree, because if she isn't, and obviously NatWest themselves, then presumably other banks may think that they can just do the same thing and get away with it, and that would be totally disgraceful, wouldn't it? It'd just make people think, well, I don't want to leave my money in a bank if potentially my personal information might get leaked. And I couldn't say I blame people if they then thought that. The sooner that NatWest has to stump up the costs or compensation, then other banks will realise exactly how much there is and probably won't want to actually fall into a similar trap themselves by doing similar stupid things like NatWest did. I don't know about you guys, but there seems to be, in my opinion, a very slow move towards a cashless society, which, to be honest, I don't really think is a very good thing at all, because even though I don't really use cash that much anyway, because I use things like my Apple Watch for Apple Pay, for a lot of people out there who are not technologically minded, they more than likely like to use cash and therefore not have to worry about things like that. In fact, some people like to use cash so they know exactly how much money they've got without needing to look in their bank. So it's actually quite worrying to hear that apparently Morrisons are going to make quite a lot of their checkouts, self-serve checkouts that is, cashless, and therefore you only have to pay by card or contactless or whatever, but you just can't pay cash. Which, if anything, if you only got cash on you, it's just going to pee you off more, isn't it? Because no doubt you'll have to wait longer to go to a self-serve checkout, in which case you'll more than likely want to go to a checkout with a person on, but that can actually be quite hard to do when they seem to be phasing them out to replace them by self-serve checkouts in general. And of course you've got other stores, haven't you, like Amazon Fresh in London and Tesco's GetGo, which apparently will soon be expanding soon from what I hear, where you just walk in, fill up your basket and then walk out without even paying at all, and it takes it all out of your bank account. Admittedly, you do have to scan to go in first, and that may actually sound quite cool, but in effect that is going to be putting lots of people out of work, isn't it? But going back to the self-serve issue, what difference is it to Morrisons? Because presumably in some of their other checkouts, people will be paying by cash, so therefore they'll still need a staff member or security van or whoever takes their cash to the bank for them, wouldn't they? So what is wrong with carrying a bit more cash? Well, it does make me question their plan a bit, and the only thing I can think of is that it's purely to get people used to not using cash anymore by a phased out slow approach, and therefore in that case they won't need to hire secure vans or whoever else to take the cash to the bank for them, which will in the long term obviously save them money and will be more secure, even though admittedly secure vans or G4S, whoever they use, are quite secure anyway, but there's always a chance, isn't there, that they might actually get robbed. Although personally I think I've got more chance of my girlfriend giving up Coronation Street, but there we go. But anyway, the article says that a Morrison spokesperson told The Sun that all of our stores will continue to offer a mix of cash and card payment options, and so if a customer wishes to pay by cash then they will be able to do so. But following the pandemic we have seen a move of our customers choosing to pay by card both on our colleague service tills and our self-service tills, and so this change is about ensuring there are a right number of a mix of cash and card payment points in our stores. Well, thinking about it, with those self-serve ones, you can pay by cash or card. They're all set up to do that. So what is the point in software limiting them when surely it would be more beneficial to the customer to have a choice of payment type? Sticking with self-service tills, and quite refreshing to hear that another supermarket is apparently going to axe them and get rid of them all entirely in all of their stores, which is quite a good thing for their staff members, isn't it? Because surely that will cut down on redundancies that these things seem to cause nowadays. And that supermarket is Booths. No, not Boots, but Booths. Sometimes known apparently as the Waitrose of the North. And they have about 28 stores and are a family-owned business. But surely if they can do it, then I can't see why any other shop won't be able to do it. And actually thinking about it, it's quite nice to actually talk to someone for a change who's scanning your goods rather than going to self-serve tills. Well, you know, unless they're scanning condoms, then it might be a bit embarrassing. But anyway, the article says that Managing Director Nigel Murray said, "We're not great fans of self-serve checkouts. We pride ourselves on great customer service, and you can't do that through a robot." He's got a very good point, hasn't he? He added that self-scan machines can also be slower and unreliable, and Booths has apparently 16 stores in Lancashire and outlets in Greater Manchester, Cheshire, Yorkshire and Cumbria. But apparently 2 of the stores in Cumbria shops will keep their self-service tills. Well, make your mind up, Booths say. Now, did you know that apparently Edinburgh are bringing in a new type of parking ban, and it's not one that you immediately would think of, and they're going to slap you with £100 fine if you have the audacity to do such a thing. And that is parking on the pavement. Now, obviously, people drive on the road. That is generally the thing, unless you are my girlfriend, in which case the pavement will be where you drive. But the point is, it looks like we're slowly starting to see an end to the half-on, half-off pavement parking that my neighbours just love to do around here. And whilst admittedly cars really ain't meant to park on the pavement, if the pavement is quite wide, and I'm talking about very wide, then I don't really see what the problem is. Now that, of course, they'll want to say that people with wheelchairs or pushchairs, whoever, need to get through, but if it's wide enough for them to do so, then as long as you're not staying there overnight, I'm guessing, you'd probably be alright in general, but obviously not now. Anyway, the article says that drivers who park on the pavement in Edinburgh will face £100 fine and a new crackdown with calls for more places to punish the practice. The new rules apparently will come into force in January after a new law in 2021 that gives local authority power to stop pavement parking gets ministerial approval in December. And new will follow. The lead affairs manager at Guide Dogs said that parking on pavements is a nuisance for everyone, but potentially dangerous if you're a wheelchair user forced onto the road, pushing a buggy, or have sight loss and can't see traffic coming towards you. The only way that I can think that traffic would be coming towards you while you're walking on the pavement is if the driver was Mr. McGill or someone like that. Because usually drivers do tend to use these things called eyes. I mean, that is quite a requirement for driving, isn't it? Now, can anyone remember a story coming out a little while ago where Scotland's Health Secretary apparently run up an £11,000 roaming bill on his iPad? Oh, it seems strange, doesn't it? Because now that same secretary has mysteriously, shall we say, decided to pay it all back, and he should have done that in the first place, but now it has obviously come out, he may have got another kick up the bum to do so. But at first, apparently he was only going to pay £3,000 back, which admittedly is better than nothing, but it just goes to show the ignorance of these people, thinking that, oh, that's okay, I'll just charge it to the taxpayer, when they shouldn't really do that. If he was roaming with an iPad, presumably intelligence would tell him that, hang on, just go log on your Wi-Fi hotspot at your hotel room. I mean, that's common sense, isn't it? I mean, they do have internet wherever he was going, surely. But anyway, the article says that Mr. Matheson incurred a £10,935.74 bill for a week-long holiday to Morocco during COVID last year. Well, hang on a minute. If he was on holiday, then why are we actually paying for it anyway? Surely, if he's on holiday, he shouldn't be doing government business at all because he's on bloody holiday. In which case, it should be down to him in general, shouldn't it? He shouldn't have had the audacity or cheek to claim it in the first place. He was apparently met with criticism after only initially contributing £3,000 from his own expenses, with the rest met by Scottish Parliament. And he said the bill was caused by an outdated SIM card in an iPad I had for constituency purposes, and the Scottish Parliament now is going to carry out a review that it will consider if MSPs, members of Scottish Parliament, should be held personally liable for costs when they have not acted in full accordance with IT office requirements. Well, personally, you'd think that goes without saying, wouldn't you? But then again, that is Scottish Parliament, isn't it? And from what I remember, they had wee little Jimmy Cranky in charge not so long ago, so who knows? And last but not least, a woman of 23 thought she would take the P out of Wales 20-mile-an-hour limit zones because she got caught doing, wait for it, 70 miles an hour in a 30 zone, which admittedly hadn't actually gone down to 20, but that's still more than double, isn't it? It is obviously quite dangerous to the public, isn't it, being a 30 zone, and surprisingly she actually got some jail time for it, which you'd like to think would happen all the time, but quite often nowadays they just let people off with a slap on the wrist, don't they? But she got, wait for it, 10 months. But not only just for that, because that also included her admitting dangerous driving, failing to stop for police, driving whilst disqualified, and driving without insurance. She was also banned from getting behind the wheel for 3 years and slapped with a £185 fine. Now, personally, for all that, you'd like to have thought she'd have got a little bit longer, wouldn't you? Especially as any old person could have walked out in front of her car, and that could have caused a massive accident, couldn't it? Both for her and the person walking across the street, if one eventually did, of course, which thankfully they didn't. But the same applies, doesn't it? But anyway, the article says a South Wales police spokesperson said Caitlyn Thomas, who is 23, from Fairwater, was driving an Audi in Gelbert, I think that says, using cloned plates to disguise her recent disqualification. Well, hang on a minute, shouldn't she have been charged with that as well? That presumably is an offence by itself, isn't it? But I guess they thought they'd at least let her off with something, eh? I mean, that's how it seems nowadays. But then again, of course, she was driving an Audi, so presumably she thinks they're all her own roads anyway. Because let's face it, nearly every Audi driver out there seems to think that, don't they? Thomas then reacted to the sight of a marked police car and a high-speed pursuit ensured around the suburban areas of Cardiff. And Caitlyn Thomas was charged and remanded the next day, and she pled guilty for driving whilst disqualified, dangerous driving, failing to stop for police, driving without insurance, and a partridge within the pear tree. And on 8th of November at Cardiff Crown Court, she was sentenced to 10 months imprisonment, 3-year disqualification, and £185 fine. But of course it doesn't end there, does it? Because wait until you see this video.